Welcome everyone to today's Spain's Day. It's great to be here. Thank you to everyone that has made today possible, especially staff, students at the college. Having you is vitally important. Thank you also to my colleagues at Foods in Spain that have worked hard to make today possible. And of course, but not least, everyone at Canela Bistro. Spain has a very rich heritage. It's a peninsula that has over hundreds of years that have been settled by a rich variety of cultures, which have left their influence and their imprint. Centuries-old traditions, which are kept alive and reimagined in its food and its recipes. It is not static, it is continuously moving. Today we are very lucky to have with us Chef Matt Schuster, chef owner of Canela Bistro, who will lead us today and share with us some of Spain's essential flavors and ingredients. Thank you to all of you. Matt, over to you.
Thank you, Jeffrey. And thank you, Foods from Spain. And welcome, Houston. Yeehaw, right? I grew up in Texas, so I can say that freely as well as y'all. So welcome to our restaurant here in San Francisco. I did grow up in Texas, but I have spent a long time, as Jeffrey was saying, traveling through Spain. My partner and extended family are in Spain, mainly in Madrid, which is a great place to be in Spain. Right now is an interesting time, but we'll talk about the different parts of Spain. One thing that I really miss from these in-person classes is I always like to ask people their feedback about how they are enjoying everything and where they've been in Spain and some of their stories. So we really encourage you to share that through the chat. You can ask questions to the group and Sophie will answer them through myself or somebody else here. Also, you can also privately ask Sophie questions too. Just hit the drop down in the chat for Sophie versus the group. So, and don't be shy. We want to hear how you like things and any questions you may have, and we're going to get rolling. So, Pinchos. So what are Pinchos? So, Pinchos it's kind of a loaded question, and sometimes it depends on different answers you may get from different people that you ask. But really, in essence, it's a small bite. Many times it's on a skewer, and many times it has a piece of bread attached. So in general, pincho is going to be those things. It's going to be a small bite. It's going to be many times on a stick, many times with a piece of bread. Okay. So as Jeffrey alluded to about using creativity, you're in the right profession to use your creativity. So one of the ways that you can do that is how you present the food. And pinchos provide a really awesome way to present food. You can get as creative as you like, and the sky's the limit. So I always like to start off with showing all these different skewers that we have, or the pinchos, the sticks. So you can see, really it's up to you and your imagination here. There's so many available now, and I always like to point out the one that we use for Halloween. It's a little skeleton hand. You have reusable ones. You can use bar items like umbrellas, which are always fun. These of course make me think of Mai Tais and other fun tropical drinks. So you can really just go crazy with what you are using as far as your presentation. This is, to me, just such a great compliment to the food. So you can see I have my assortment of pinchos here, or skewers here, and we'll be using these today in the presentation. So I'm going to load everybody back in, and we're going to get going here. Now you all have 3 of the recipes. We're doing 6 recipes. We have some items that you did not get. And so we're going to do one of ours and then one of yours and then back to one of ours. So while we're doing one of ours, you can enjoy yours, okay? And as I said, please do not be shy. Ask questions. You have a lot of great folks in the room with a lot of great knowledge too, so to help answer questions as well. So Pinchos are not just a food, they're also, it's a way of life, it's a tradition. Many times it's referred to in the north of Spain, in La Rioja, where wine comes from, or a lot of the wine comes from, not all the wine. We'll talk about that as well. And the Basque Country as well, which is also in the north. You may have heard of San Sebastian or Bilbao in the Basque Country, where maybe some of you have been. And that is a very typical style of eating there, eating pinchos. And you have lots of bars that are known for their one particular kind of pincho many times, right? Now, you have to get out of the mindset of a bar is a place where you only drink. In Europe, you have a bar which is really, it refers to the fact that there is a bar, but many times it's eating, and many times it's standing up. It is maybe having a bite or two before you move on to the next place. And that is very much how you eat pinchos and how you enjoy pinchos. It's social, you go with friends and family, and you make a day out of it. You go for 2 to 3 hours and you stroll along, you have the specialty of the house and a glass of paired wine, and then you go down the street and you just wander through until you're full, you've had your fill, you've caught up with everybody, and it's really you have to go do it. If you have not been on a pincho crawl, you definitely have to go do it. Okay, in Spain, more or less after the 1960s, it became a more popular way of eating. So much so that in the north, in the Basque Country especially, they have special health code rules that allow for the pinchos being spread out on the bar. Of course, as culinary students, you have time and temperature, right? So they go by the time rule, where you have it out, and then after a certain amount of time, it's no good anymore, right? But people tend to make a plate either by the bartender or themselves, almost like sometimes a buffet style. Sometimes you're handed pinchos, much like sometimes you're handed maybe a small tapa, which we can also talk about maybe some of the differences as well. And it's very, like I said, very social. Okay, so jumping right in, because we have a lot to do, we're gonna go into the first recipe and talk about the ingredients as we go. So Manchego cheese. And thank you again, John, for compiling these really great maps. We have the whole country blown up, and you can see the different regions that we have everything coming from. So it is a good thing to understand that Spain is divided up into regions and provinces. So a region would be like Andalusia, where you see the membrillo comes from, and we'll talk about what membrillo is as well. But the region is broken down further into provinces. So Granada is a province within Andalusia. So just like you can think about the United States, we have states and counties. We're in San Francisco County in California. So it's the same thing within Spain. And the food is very regional. You'll see this through the maps that we have. Every region in every province has a specialty. So we're looking at right now Manchego cheese, which is a sheep's milk cheese. There are so many great cheeses produced in Spain. If you haven't explored them all, I really encourage you to explore some of the unique cheeses. Manchego is got to be the largest export cheese in Spain, and Jeffrey can back me up with actual facts on that. But it really is a cheese that is very versatile. You can have a young Manchego, you can have an aged Manchego. They all have their usefulness within recipes and within the cheese plate. So of the 3 types of milk, sheep, cow, goat, this is a sheep's milk cheese. It comes from La Mancha, and it is really a great cheese. You're going to be eating a young Manchego here. This one is aged for about 3 months, and then they get drier as they go from there. So membrillo, which is also popular in the South, really actually popular all over, but it really comes from the South. It's the quince fruit, and it has enough pectin, just like apple, where you boil it down and simmer it down. and it gets a gel-like property. So quince paste is the fruit of the quince, and it is cooked with sugar, excuse me, sometimes a few spices, and that's really it. It's very simple. It turns that really great reddish color, and then we have the Pipara peppers are grown in the north. They are a pickled pepper. Sometimes, excuse me, sometimes they're a little bit spicy, and generally though they're mainly pickled flavor. So the cuisine of Spain is not spicy. You know, there are spicy elements, but you want to think more European flavors than Latin flavors. So the elements of spice are things like guindilla peppers that maybe are dried, and many times a recipe will have a piece of a pepper. And it's a really great way to cook. I'm sure you will be going over chili peppers in your classes, or maybe you already have. And chili peppers many times are great to use just a piece or maybe one chili in a whole batch of something, because it adds another element of flavor, and you may not be able to trace it as to just spicy only, but you'll notice that there is another element. So that is great for thank you, John, for going over or putting the map together. We love that. So we're now going to start building our first pincho, our first skewer, and a word about, you know, placement on the skewer, right? So especially now when we're all trying to do our single service everythings, right, and keep people from you know kind of touching food in general. When you build your skewer, you want to keep in mind, you know, how it's going to be used, how it's going to be eaten. You know, is it going to be on a tray at a party? Is it going to be on top of a glass as a drink? Is it going to be on a piece of bread? So I always start with a sturdy element first. You know, I don't want to start with something that has a lot of holes in it, because it won't hold up when I pick the skewer up. It'll fall onto my fingers. Also, you know, I tend to not want to load the skewer down completely from tip to end. I want to keep it on the first part of the skewer so people can comfortably grab it, and they don't feel like, you know, that they need to be touching the food with their hands. So it's a really good, you know, single service food right now, which is, you know, kind of apropos to the times. So we have first a cube of manchego, which I'm going to put onto my skewer. And then I have my membrillo, my quince paste here, and I'm going to put a cube of the membrillo. So also, you know, I want to think about the colors, you know, as I'm building my skewers too. I want to try to alternate my colors as well. And then I'm going to top it with a Pipara pepper. So we use these all the time here. We get them in really big jars from Spain, the Pipara peppers. They are they're really delicious. You can, and if you're lucky, I'm actually trying to get a local chili grower to grow these for me, because they're actually really good fried. I did some stages throughout Spain, and one of the stages that I did was at Hotel Viura in the wine country in La Rioja. And there they did, for like an appetizer, they took the fresh guindilla peppers, the fresh Pipara peppers, and they kind of like flash fried them like you would a padron pepper or a shishito pepper. And they were absolutely delicious. They look like kind of like the green chili bird peppers almost. And then so you take it and you think it's going to be spicy, but they're really not. And it was really a delicious experience. So I'm gonna also use some of my quince paste for a sauce, you know, as well. So all of this, all I did for the sauce that you have in your pack is just membrillo quince paste that was put in a blender with some water, and that's it, right? And so I'm just gonna, you know, spread it on my plate, you know, paint a little sauce on there, and then I have a little bed of sauce for my pincho, and just gives it, you know, a little bit of character, a little bit of interest, and you know, it's simple. Now, don't be fooled that this isn't work. to do a pincho party, you have to cut a lot of items, right? You have to have a lot of variety of items, and then you have to do the assembly. So if you do plan a pincho party, keep that in mind. I'm sure that your instructors who helped build your kits can attest to that, because there's a lot of different ingredients. So, and in fact, when we were a young restaurant, we've been open now about a little over 9 years. It'll be 9.5, or it'll be 10 years this spring, which is kind of nuts. But at the beginning, we decided to do one night a pincho party, and a skewer, it takes a couple minutes to build sometimes. It takes somebody like 2 seconds to eat it, right? So we were trying to keep up. The idea was that we would do San Sebastian here, and we filled the bar with pinchos, and it was awesome until all the people came in, and they really just were devouring quickly. And so we were in the back just trying to keep up with all the pinchos. And in hindsight, I would have made like twice the amount ahead of time than we did, because it's time intensive. But that's how you learn. We learned that day, and we haven't made that same mistake since. So moving right along, any questions about any of those ingredients that we've used so far? Any comments? Any notes on the flavors? How the quince tastes? How the manchego tastes? So as you think of those things and as you're munching, I'm going to go into my second recipe here. Now we are going to do a recipe that you guys don't have. So it's poached shrimp, which I have here. And these are, I like to use white shrimp. They remind me of Spain the most. This was poached in some hot water with a few herbs and spices, a little bit of salt and sugar, and just till it's done, and then chilled in an ice bath. We also have some marble potatoes, which I have here, which are great. You can get them in different colors. These ones we blanch and roast. We serve these with our pulpo, with our octopus, which I'll talk about as well. And then again, the Pipara pepper, because we love it so much. And this recipe also has aioli or aioli, which I'm going to talk about as well. So let's take a look at the map. The peppers coming from the north, which you saw before. If you think you like potatoes, go to Spain. They eat potatoes like crazy there. You would never walk into a house and not see potatoes there. It would be almost like not seeing bread there as well. So seafood. So would you believe Spain is the #2 consumer of seafood behind Japan? You can obviously see why, right? The whole entire country is surrounded by water except for where it touches France. And you get the different properties of the Mediterranean and of the Atlantic as well. Tuna travel from the Atlantic to the Mediterranean through the south. It is like go to Tarifa, go to Cadiz in Andalusia at the tip of Spain. You can see the north of Africa. If you like, you can take a ferry there that will get you there in an hour, and then you'll be in the north of Africa. And we'll come back to seafood as well, because there are so many opportunities to taste and talk about seafood with Spain. And then aioli or alioli, depending on who who's pronouncing it. So both mayonnaise and aioli are very common within Spain. Okay. They're also very common made at home. It's not something that necessarily needs to be bought in a store. Every household in Spain has an immersion blender, and in fact, if you go to one of my favorite things to do when I'm in a different country, and Spain I've been to many times, but you go and see where the local shop. And so, for example, the big department store there is called El Corte Inglés. And that is like, it's like the Macy's, right? It's everywhere. It's in every city, every town in Spain. And they have in their housewares department, which is like one of my first stops always when we go, they have a whole aisle only immersion blenders. Literally, there's like 30 different kinds of immersion blenders. And when I was younger and seeing these things, I was, you take note and you kind of wonder why, and then you realize because things like aioli and gazpacho and other blended sauces are such an important part of the cuisine that it is important that every household has a good immersion blender. And so we actually here, you certainly as culinary students, you know that you can make a mayonnaise with an immersion blender, with a Robocoo, with a with a Vitamix, by hand. Of all those methods, I really do prefer using an immersion blender. I think it makes aioli or mayonnaise the quickest, and it's one of my favorite ways to do it. So difference between mayonnaise and aioli. So mayonnaise, like aioli, starts with eggs. We use whole eggs here. Some people just use yolks. And oil, right? For mayonnaise, it's a flavorless oil, like a canola, a rice bran, a grapeseed, avocado, and some kind of acid, a little white vinegar or lemon juice, and salt. And that's kind of it for mayonnaise, right? So what makes an aioli has garlic, and it has olive oil, or at least a portion of olive oil. So the way we make our aioli here is we start with whole eggs. We put in first a little bit of flavorless oil, like a rice bran oil, to capture the emulsification, to really let it set. And then once it's set, then we add in the olive oil next. I find that if we add a very fruity extra virgin olive oil first, sometimes it can make the flavor of the aioli too strong, or sometimes a little bit bitter. But if you start with, we find, if you start with a little bit of flavorless oil first, maybe like 1 part flavorless oil to 2 parts olive oil, then the emulsion starts, and then you can go in with your olive oil. So after it's finished, that's when we flavor it. And our house aioli is flavored with garlic and Spanish paprika, pimenton, which we will also talk about a little bit later. As well. So those go into the flavoring mix as well as lemon juice, and then that's pretty much it. Aiolis, you can go crazy. I mean, you really, it's limitless. We do aioli sometimes with squid ink, so it makes it really black and really fun for those kinds of applications. We've done it with different kinds of fruit. We did a cherry aioli one time, which was really good. We've done quince aioli, which is nice. You put in a little portion of quince paste or the membrillo in at the end, and you blend it up. We've done a sweet potato aioli for the holidays one year, which is a really fun fusion of the States and Spain, which was fun. So okay, so I'm going to start here with my skewer, my pincho, and I'm going to start with something that is a little bit more solid for the base, right? I mean, I can go with my shrimp, I can go with my potato. We'll go with our, finding a pick here. We'll go with our shrimp first. So when I do the shrimp, I'm going to skewer it through 2 points of contact. It's just, it's a little bit better for it being stable within the stick, right? And, many times, you could even kind of stop with just a couple of elements. This and the aioli would even be a fun, element. But we're going to kind of keep going. Now, you can certainly put the pipara. We tend to put it on the top. We'll put it in the middle this time just to show some variation. I leave the stem on. It's you can eat it. It's not going to kill you. It's certainly a little it's a little bit woody, right? But I think it's prettier with the stem, so I leave it. And then I'll finish here with my marble potato. I have them at the top of my skewer here, which I like, and then I'm going to start to build these on a plate with the aioli and with another couple ingredients. So, one thing that I want to mention is the fact that you can get really creative with the plates that you use. We have so many different kinds of plates here. You can go crazy. And that's one thing that I saw at one of the stages that I did in the south of Spain, in Granada, at a small restaurant called Damasqueros, which was a lot of fun. I learned some really great southern recipes like migas, which we can talk about later, breadcrumbs that you don't really find find here. And so at that restaurant at Damasqueros, the chef there, she was really great about just buying a few dishes here and there, and I did that here too, because we do a lot of tapas, and it gives you the opportunity to not have a huge investment of buying 200 of one kind of plate. I mean, we do that for share plates, right? But you can have a dozen or 2 dozen or 3 dozen of one kind of fun plate, because it's just one of the dishes that you have, and so we always have a lot of fun with dishes here. We buy different dishes all the time. So I'm gonna take one of my other dishes here, and then I'm gonna start to kind of elaborate my pincho a little bit. So the thing that's going on with here is the aioli. So that's going to be my sauce. I'm going to grab my aioli that I've made earlier, and then I'm going to add it to the plate. So here's my garlic paprika aioli. Many times, as with other sauces, I'll put a dab, to hold it on the plate, and then I'll also put another dab on top, and then maybe I'll give it a little elaboration of some pea sprouts. So I'll give it just a little green on top, and that's kind of it. It's really, like I said, it's not 1,000 ingredients. Spanish cooking, is not necessarily like other cuisines where it has a recipe that has 100 different ingredients in it. I mean, certainly you have some of those kinds of recipes as well, but the thing that I really notice about Spanish cuisine is it's many times fewer ingredients, but the ingredients really can stand on their own. They're really high quality. They are maybe 4 or 5 ingredients in a dish sometimes, but the potatoes are taste like potato, right? The piece of fish is fresh, and it tastes like it's supposed to taste. The shrimp are sweet. The ham is savory. So I know, and it's 2 hours later there, right? It's lunchtime there. So you guys, I'm hopefully making you hungrier with all of these things. So if you have any questions or comments, tell us what you think. You can plug them into the chat, and I'll answer the questions for you. I want to make sure that we went over all of those ingredients that were listed on this particular pincho. And that's my pincho of the poached shrimp, the pipara pepper, the marble potato with the garlic paprika aioli. And we're going to keep going back to a recipe that you have the ingredients for. And it is going to be, this one is what I like to call the umami bomb or the flavor bomb. It's got really great ingredients. It's got olives, which we're going to talk about in depth here, boquerones, or the anchovies in vinegar, a little bit of sun-dried or roasted tomato, and then in this also recipe, there's chorizo, which is a cured chorizo. We're going to talk about, as well as using olive oil and the pimenton as a sauce. So I'm lining up my ingredients. A side note, the paprika or the pimenton samples that you have, If you peel the sticker up, it's actually a shaker. So you can use the pimentone as a shaker, and this is something that you'll see in this recipe, too. But we love to use the pimentone as a garnish, not only a flavor garnish, but also as a plate elaboration too, because it really is so pretty. In fact, I joke sometimes that instead of naming the restaurant Canela, which means cinnamon, I should have named it Pimentone, because we use paprika a lot here. So one of the questions we have is why do we leave the tail on the shrimp? I think it's pretty. I think it looks pretty. Yes, I know that of all the items, you can't eat the tail, but you know what? People are smart for the most part, and I think they realize that you certainly can take the tail off. But that's one of those things that we like to that we like to do. So is leave it on. Now the other thing I was going to say about that is we also do shrimp, head-on shrimp, which is a very typical way in Spain to enjoy shrimp. You pull the head off. You suck the head, right, to get the sweet juice within the head of the shrimp, and it should be fresh and taste like the ocean and salty with some salt, grain salt on top, and then that's really, and some olive oil, and that's kind of many times all you need for a good shrimp dish. There are lots of different kinds of shrimp in Spain. In fact, at one of the other apprenticeships I did there, they did a carpaccio or a tartare of a red shrimp. And in the States, sometimes I think people would kind of be like, shrimp tartare, that's going to kill me. But it was great, and it was super flavorful. So if you have a chance to try that in a good quality way, you should. So, okay, so back to this one. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap my olive in the boquerón. So the boquerones come from many times the north. We're taking a look at the map now, and the north is one of the places you're going to find the boquerones, or the anchovies in white vinegar. If you were moving over, then following around to the west, looking at also boquerones come from the west too, down through the south. To the mid, kind of the mid-central, region. We're looking at Extremadura, also in the west, and Andalusia in the south, and La Mancha and Murcia for the chorizo. So, for chorizo, you have fresh chorizo as well as cured chorizo, and we're using the cured chorizo here. We're lucky to be able to get, a decent variety of chorizos and jamons imported into the United States. I wish it was more. Obviously, the United States always has, big issue with the fear of listeria, and so sometimes that, means that we have less options for some of the imported meats that come in. But we still do have a very good selection. Now, if you went to Spain, you would see all of the different regions have their own chorizos, and you have a lot of different regional qualities that are different from region to region. So olives certainly coming from the south of Spain, although they are grown in the north as well. But if you've ever been down through Andalusia driving on the highway or on a train, you'll look out the window and you'll see seas and seas and seas of olive trees. And I always refer to Jeffrey for the expertise on olive oil and olives, but he can tell you how many olives that it takes to put into like a liter of olive oil, but it's a lot. I had a really great fortune of going to visit Castillo de Canela, which is an olive oil producer in the south, and they showed me not only where they grew the olives, or one of the places where they grew the olives, but also how they press the oil. And it's a operation, and that is for sure. So And then pimenton. So just like you have other DOs in the world, right? Like champagne, like it can't be called champagne if it's outside, of that particular area or region within France. It's the same within Spain. You have different DOs. And so pimenton is one of those where to be called like the traditional de la Vera, it has to come from that region. It's a DO, it's specific. It doesn't mean that there's not pimenton produced outside of that region, but to be called a true pimenton, it has to come from that region de la Vera. So we have a nice traveling all the way, around Spain. Tomatoes are prevalent throughout Spanish cooking. It's like potatoes and tomatoes you find in so many dishes in Spanish cuisine. So I wanted to throw a little bit of tomato in here to get that flavor, in as well. So now we've talked about those things at least a little bit, and now we're going to start building our skewer. So this is a gordal or queen olive. You would see it sometimes here referred to as a queen olive. These are one of our favorite olives to work with. They're really meaty. You can see that the holes are really big, so you can stuff them with all kinds of ingredients. If you wanted to make a bar drink, that has a stuffed olive, you can grab this olive with ease, and put it on top of your drink. Which is really fun with some other elements, right? So this we always do here with Spanish vermouth, which is delicious. If you have not tried it, you need to. It goes really well with these certain flavors of olive and anchovy and orange. So you could stuff your gordal olive or your queen olive, with an anchovy and maybe a piece of orange, or maybe even a small piece of candied orange rind, and then put it on top of your vermouth, your Spanish vermouth. So I'm going to grab the skewer that I want to use. We'll take this one, has a jewel on it, and then I'm going to wrap my boqueron, my anchovy, around the olive. I'm not going to put it through the hole because, again, it will cause my olive kind of to fall down. So I want to put it actually the other way and, put it through the skewer like this. So I have my white anchovy wrapped olive. And then I'm going to put on my skewer as well a piece of chorizo, or maybe I'll do a couple pieces of chorizo here. And what makes it red in color? It's the pimentone, or the paprika. We use the most here smoked paprika, just because maybe that's my Texas roots and my nod to barbecue flavors. But I love smoked paprika. You can also get it in sweet or bitter and spicy. Spicy paprika is nice to use as well to give another element to your sauces and other dishes. So I have a couple pieces of the chorizo here, and then I'm going to use just a little piece of the roasted tomato. I don't want it to be super strong because it is a big flavor punch, but I do want that element of tomato. So just one little piece of tomato. So now the fun thing about this particular recipe is we get to look at using olive oil as a sauce. We get to talk about olive oil for a minute, and the pimentone, as a plate elaboration as well. So first, we're gonna put a little bit of olive oil onto our skewer. So this is an extra virgin olive oil. You'll see it gives really great color to the plate. Growing up in States, and certainly growing up in Texas, I won't say how long ago, but growing up in Texas, you would go into the grocery store at that time. That was pre-Central Market and other gourmet grocery stores. But, you would go into the grocery store and it was basically all, vegetable oils. There was probably some olive oil, but at that time, it wasn't as popular as now. Conversely, go into a grocery store in Spain, and the entire aisle is almost all olive oil. I mean, they use it for every application there. I mean, certainly there are applications for flavorless oil, but even in their fryers in the restaurant, many times it is a pure olive oil, not maybe an extra virgin, but a pure olive oil. And it really, having fried food in olive oil, it really takes on that really great fruity flavor, a really savory flavor. So I wasn't used to oil as an ingredient, growing up, right? I had to learn that with age and seeing how other people do it. But at one of the practicas or the stages that I did in the north of Spain, at Echauren, we used olive oil in low temperature cooking, so it would get sealed into the vacuum bags with fish and herbs. And that really opened my eyes to, olive oil being an ingredient, right? And Jeffrey's going to talk a little bit more about it, but just as there's different varietals of grapes, there's different varietals of olives, and each of those olives have different properties. Some of the olives are spicy, some of them are buttery, some of them are grassy. Sometimes there's blends, sometimes there's single origins. So you want to pay attention to those things because they, just as you add a spice or a certain other flavor to a dish, the olive oil is going to bring in a different flavor depending on what you choose. So I have my my olive oil in here, as a plate sauce, as a ingredient, and then also I'm gonna put some of the pimentón on as well. This is gonna add a little smoky element. It's gonna add some visual appeal and. Like I said, it's an ingredient that we use not only in cooking, but in our plate elaborations a lot too, because it's so fun to do. So hopefully you've managed to figure out our portable shakers. We started doing those during COVID for one of our meal kits when we realized this dessert really needs a powdered sugar shaker, but how can we push that out into our to-go kits? And so we started taking a fork and putting it into the fire on the stove and then poking it through the lid of the portion containers to make a shaker, which actually we've ended up using for different applications just like this. So there is a question about why did we wrap the anchovy around the olive? That's a great question. One, it's a very typical way to see anchovies within Spanish cuisine, as many times the boquerones are in the olive or wrapped around the olive. So to me, it reminds me of Spain. It's reminiscent of Spain. Also, it's kind of a delicate ingredient, right? It may be a little difficult sometimes for it to stay on the skewer. So, this kind of assures me that it's going to stay on the skewer a little bit more. I mean, maybe I'm making like 200 of these and I'm transporting them, on bumpy roads, to, somewhere, and I want to make sure that they're really stable, for whatever reason. But it reminds me of Spain. The flavor of anchovy and olive, they just go so well together. And these olives are from our friends at Losada. It's the only olive that we use here. There are lots of different places to get olives, especially Spanish olives. There are many different makers of, producers. If you've ever tried making olives, I tried making it one time. It's a pain in the butt, I will tell you. You have to constantly change the water. We weren't using lye, so we had to use heavily salted water. And you have to, I got one case of olives. I thought it'd be fun to make my own olives. And it was like having a child. It needed attention daily. We were constantly changing the water. It was, and then the end product, they were good, but they weren't as good as, as many of the other olives that I can just get, very easily made, like these ones that come from Losada. Try making your own olives, to see how it is, but then, don't be ashamed if you say that's not for you, because that's okay, don't worry. So that is my pincho of the Gordal or queen olive wrapped with the boqueron, the Spanish anchovy in vinegar with the cured chorizo and a little bit of tomato, some olive oil, and some pimenton. Okay, so yeah, a question is how are you supposed to eat it? To eat it all at once or one at a time? Eat it all at once. I mean, this is really it's the flavor bomb, right? Like, you know, eat it all, get all the flavors. Now, certainly, as with all the ingredients, you want to know how they taste on their own, right? So you can kind of start to put together how they're going to pair with each other. But yeah, no, these are meant to be, you know, one bite, you know, maybe two if you can't kind of get it all. You know, in at one time, but it is it's meant to be eaten all at once, right? Okay, so now we're going to go over to Jeffrey at Foods from Spain and Trade Commission of Spain. He's going to talk to you a little bit more in depth about olive oil and olives. So Jeffrey, go ahead, take it away.
Thank you, Matt. Well, I wish I could do this actually in person. What I would normally do is give you the skills, teach you the skills that would help you differentiate, appreciate what is a good extra virgin olive oil. However, we are where we are. Olive oil, Spain is number one. By number one, I mean we're number one in olive oil production, but half the world's olive oil crop in a given year is coming out of Spain. But importantly, not just on quantity, we also produce some very, very good olive oil. And of course, you might say, well, you're being paid to do this, so you're going to tell me this. True, that's good critical thinking. But if you look at contests like the New York City International Extra Virgin Olive Oil Competition, you will see that continuously we're prized as the best. So you can see from the contests that, you know, we are very good. We have very good olive oil. But also think of olive oil beyond being a fat that you use to cook. It's a condiment. It has taste. In a way, it's very similar to wine. Similar to wine in the way that it's produced. We have a varietal. In wine, you have Chardonnay, Tempranillo, plus where it's produced, the idea of terroir, land. Well, it's exactly the same with olive oil. We have Piquil, Hojiblanca, Arbequina, about 254 varietals. So this is part of what influences flavor. Terroir, where it's grown. We can have the same varietal, different parts of Spain will have a different flavor. And lastly, and not important, when it's picked and the skill of the miller. All this together will influence the final quality of the extra virgin olive oil. So taste, very important. But also, it's been demonstrated year after year, research after research, it's a healthy olive oil. FDA has approved as a heart-healthy olive oil, substituting other fats like butter. It's also good anti-inflammatory, extra virgins, key to the Mediterranean diet. And anyway, this is all I have today to share with you. Olive oil from Spain, not just for frying, also a condiment, great for finishing food. Quick recipe I would suggest, just try grating some tomato on a cheese grater. You get the pulp. Put a little bit of extra virgin olive oil, or a little more, plenty of it. Mix it together, and add on some great tasting bread. You have a great snack, good breakfast, good lunch. Anyway, your imagination is the limit. Thank you, Matt. Over to you.
You know, we use olive oil in several ways here. One as a blend for our saute cooking. We blend extra virgin with high heat oil, usually like a rice bran, and we keep it in a giant jug that we blend ourselves and we use for sauteing. And then we have different olive oils, usually many times single varietal oils that we use for finishing sauces, for drizzling. And those, you know, you don't want to buy them in 5-liter jugs. You know, you want to get them in the small bottles because you want them really to maintain their freshness and have that punch. And another thing that I like to tell people about olive oil, especially for at home, don't save it, use it. You know, it loses its flavor, it goes bad just like any other oil. And you'll see people sometimes that they have such a special oil and they're afraid to use it. You know, use it up. You know, buy them in smaller quantities, especially at home, and then you'll use them faster. They'll be fresher, but you know, play with them. That's what I always like to encourage people to do. Well, thank you, Jeffrey. Thanks for those explanations on olives and olive oil. And you know, if you do have a chance to go to Spain and see, where olive oil comes from, and again, as a culinary student, you have unique opportunities to have access to places that other people may not have access to. Foods from Spain is putting on this seminar for you because you're culinary students, and they want to invest in you and train you so you can go out into the world and really speak confidently about all these different ingredients. So I'm going to move on to my next recipe here. This recipe always reminds me of South, always reminds me of Andalusia. This is a recipe that I learned in Granada. And you can see, we talked about regions and provinces. You can see all the different provinces of Andalusia. And Cadiz is what I was talking is the tip of Spain. It's where you can see there's a time of year when the tuna crosses from the Atlantic to the Mediterranean, and that's really fun. Every recipe is with tuna, and we'll talk about tuna a little bit later as well. Eggplant, I know it's not necessarily like in season right now per se, but eggplant, is very popular especially in the summertime. And this particular dish is a fried eggplant dish. Again, it reminds me of the south of Spain, and it's not a. I didn't create this recipe. This is a very typical kind of recipe that you see, especially from the south. So it's fried eggplant, and we use the Chinese eggplant here because it's a little bit easier to work with. It doesn't have seeds. It's never bitter. You don't have to peel it. The skin's very thin. You can use any eggplant you like. You can use the globe or Japanese, whatever you like. So these are just thin slices that were cut and also soaked in milk. And then they were coated lightly in flour. You could also use cornstarch if you're trying to remain gluten-free. And then fried in a pan with some olive oil. So that's really it for the eggplant. Thin slices. I think the real surprise for this dish is how it's built. So, this one we're going to do in the traditional pincho style. We're going to start with a piece of bread or a piece of toast. And we're going to build on top of that, and then we're going to finish it with a skewer. So I'm going to put a little bit of my miel de caña. So miel de caña is molasses. And for this, because it doesn't, the molasses that we get here is, in my opinion, a little bit stronger than what we would find as a typical miel de caña in Spain. We mix our own with honey and molasses, and to get that really strong flavor. But you can buy, next time we're able to travel again, bring back stuff. Really, there's so many things that you can bring back, especially things that are canned or in jars, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But bring back some miel de caña, and you can see. So we make our own. It's a combination of honey and a little bit of molasses. I'm going to start with a little bit on my bread. So you may be thinking to yourself, sweet and eggplant? That's super weird. You're not alone. So, and I like to tell this story all the time. As you make your menus, and I'm sure many of you are making your menus now and have been working in restaurants now, everybody may not like what you make, and it's okay, right? I mean, either one, you don't like. You agree with them, and then you change it, and you don't do it again. And sometimes that happens. Sometimes, you like something, and you put it out, and and it's maybe not quite right for whatever reason, and then you agree, and you fix it, and you try again, right? And that's a very important part of learning, right? And then there's the times when you have items that you love, and somebody else may not like it, but it's a matter of, as my grandmother, who grew up in San Antonio, said, some people are chocolate and some people are vanilla. And, it is true. Some people like chocolate ice cream, some people like vanilla ice cream, and that is fine, right? So when you have a dish that you like and you stand behind, it kind of doesn't matter as much what other people think. And I hate to say it kind of quite like that, but this is a hard industry to be in. It's long hours, it's hard work. So you can take certain liberties in certain ways. And one of those ways that I like taking, liberties is, you know, if I put my stamp on something and I really can get behind it, then I don't apologize for it, right? You know, if you're not hurting anybody with it, you're not, you know, like mowing over like a small tribal village to get an ingredient, you know what I'm saying? And you're doing things well. If you like something and somebody else doesn't, you know, that's your stand to make. So, so I have my sweet and eggplant combination, which when we serve in the restaurant, mainly in the summer, you know, a couple people, you know, out of you know, like maybe like 5 people out of 100 will order this dish and they'll say, oh, I don't care for that, because they can't really kind of wrap their head around the sweet and the eggplant. And again, like I said, it's fine. So I have my bread, I have my fried eggplant, I have my miel de caña. I'm going to drizzle a little bit more on top. This is also nice for a plate sauce. And then I'm going to top it with a skewer. I'm going to use, in this case, I'm going to use an umbrella, because why not? I'll give it also maybe a little bit of, maybe we'll do a little bit of parsley on here as well. Again, to have fun with the plate. And then I'm going to make it, because, you know, we're all wishing for that beach vacation. I'm going to make my pincho here, you know, with an umbrella. You know, is it meant to be picked up with the umbrella? You know, no. You know, but it's fun. Play with it, you know, whatever. It's great. You know, also don't be afraid if, for example, you know, you realize your pick is too big, you know, make it shorter. Break it off a little bit. Don't feel like you need to, you know, leave that for no particular reason. So there's my little boat of miel de caña with the berenjena frita, the fried eggplant, fried in olive oil, and that's it. Yeah. So if you have any questions or comments about this, you know, a great pairing for this would be a Spanish sherry. Growing up in the States, you know, we weren't really privy to sherries, right? But sherries are amazing. They're really, you know, I mean, they can be sweet or savory, but they go really well with these flavors. And Spain is really famous for sherry. In one of our later next few recipes, there is a, we're using a reduction of vinegar that comes from Jerez, which we'll talk about. I don't want to get ahead of myself. But with this, a nice Amontillado sherry would be great with this dish. So, so that is that dish. And we are, again, don't be shy if you have comments or questions. If you didn't like it, you know, say it's fine. Oh, I'm sorry, you didn't get to taste this one. So when you do it and taste it, if you don't like it, send us an email and say, hey, I don't like it. You know, we love kind of to hear the feedback from everybody. It's good. Okay, so now moving right along. Now back to the next recipe that you have. Is the Piquil Peppers, which is great because it allows me to talk about Piquil Peppers. The Serrano ham, we're going to talk for a minute about ham. This one also has the sherry reduction from Jerez. So okay, so let's take a look at the map, back to the map of Spain. So jamon, you know, yes, it does come from, you know, many times Castilla y León, Extremadura, Andalusia, but you know, again, it's, you know, there are other parts of the country it comes from as well. These are just kind of like the most known regions for these ingredients. The Piquil peppers, they come from Navarra, right? So if you've heard of Running with the Bulls in Pamplona, that's in that region of Navarra. And Pamplona is a really cool city, like not even you know, talking about the Running of the Bulls, but in general, you know, it's a really, really interesting city that you definitely need to make a trek to if you have not. It's also up in the north where you have you know, traditions of pinchos. And I grew up Jewish, and there were actually history of Jews and Jewish recipes that come from Navarra as well. And then you have we talked about the jamon already, but I'm going to say, so this recipe we're using Serrano ham. We also use here jamon ibérico, which we carve off the bone. But the Serrano ham is, just like there's different classifications of, of other animals and how they're raised and what they eat. You have that with all the different hams that come from Spain. So you can have a young or an aged version of any of them, and same with the Serrano ham. So Serrano ham is typically a little bit less expensive, or sometimes majorly less expensive than some of the other hams that are really kind of very boutique. But the Serrano ham is kind of like, in my opinion, it's kind of like the workhorse ham. You can put it on a bocadillo, on a sandwich. You can chop it up and put it in a recipe. You can wrap it around a date, or you can just kind of eat it hand to mouth. So it really works well in the price point for using it in all those different ways. This jamon serrano that we have, it's a boneless jamon serrano. It comes from our friends at Redondo Iglesias, and we get it boneless. We cut it on the meat slicer because we go through a lot of it, and we always have it on hand to use as a topping on mushrooms and on sandwiches. It goes in our croqueta recipes. So that's the Serrano ham. So and then also the sherry or the Jerez. This is what we talk about, a DO again. Jerez is the DO within the south, within Andalusia, and you got the sherry vinegar reduction that we made. And so we took a bunch of sherry vinegar and we reduced it down by 3/4 to get more of a syrupy, viscous liquid. And it adds really great flavor. You get all those notes that you would from a sherry or a wine, but reduced down into a sauce. And then now we're going to build the plate with that. So I'm going to take my plate. I'm going to take a piece of bread. I'm going to start off with a little bit of olive oil, and to moisten my bread. And then I am going to first start with a slice of the piquil pepper. So the piquil peppers, they're mild roasted peppers. They're very typically meant for, or they're very typically stuffed, although there's lots of things you can do with them, and you'll see, I'm going to show you two different ways. But they're mild peppers. You can stuff them with anything. I'm going to do a stuffed recipe in a moment to show you. But you can also open them up and use them like you would, like a fillet of roasted pepper. So I just opened, I opened one up, and this is just one side, of a pepper, right? I very typically also, like to use these under fish. I'll fry them in a hot pan, maybe with a little bit of sugar, and get some nice color on it, and use it on a piece of fish. So in this instance, it's going to be the first layer on my toast. I'm just going to kind of fold it a little bit to match the shape of the toast a little bit more, and then I'm going to add my jamon serrano, and so you want to make sure that these are cut, that these are thinly cut, right? So you can get all that really good flavor. Again, super versatile on how you can use the ham. We typically have so many causes to use ham in a Spanish restaurant that we definitely like to get creative. We'll fry these as like chips, and we'll put them in the fryer, and we'll fry them up to use as garnishes, as well. But really, it's up to you, with your own creativity. So this is just very simply the Serrano ham, the piquil pepper, and then I'm going to top it with a little bit of my reduced sherry vinegar from Jerez, which you have as well. I'm not going crazy. I'm in a way aiming sometimes more for the plate than I am the product, because I definitely like to show the sauce well, and then we can give this maybe a little bit of green on top, And that's kind of it with this particular pincho. I'll give this a skewer as well, so we can be 100% here. And then this is my pincho of the. I mean, you could call it a montadito. A montadito many times is like an open-faced sandwich or a toast, you know. But in this instance, because it's small and it's got our little pick, we're gonna talk about this in the pincho world of the Jamon Serrano, the Piquil pepper, and bread and olive oil, and the reduction of sherry vinegar from Jerez. So I hope you enjoy that one. That's a good, you know, one of our favorites around here. So, you know, certainly, gosh, you know, it's hard to say. Many times people ask me what my favorite area in Spain is, or region, or city, you know, to travel around to. And it's hard to say, right? Because, you know, you have good memories from all the different places. The difference many times, and it's less and less, you know, as we kind of get, you know, a little bit more modern, is in the south of Spain, you have more traditions of Moorish or Arabic influences than you do in the north, right? I mean, you know, we talked about being in Andalusia, being, you know, especially in Tarifa at the tip, in Cadiz, you know, being so close to the north of Spain. You know, in the south, the north of Africa, in the south of Spain, you know, you would see spice markets, which was kind of like an Arabic, you know, thing. You wouldn't really see that as much in the north, you know. Although you know now certainly everything's a lot more you know, traveling. The regions get you know, closer and closer, right, as we get more and more modern. But still, there's a lot of very distinct things, and certainly the history is very distinct. So in the south, you have the tradition of the Arabic traditions. If you've ever been to Granada, to the Alhambra, to the Albaicin, where the Alhambra is, and you see like these big Arabic castle, and if you've ever toured it, which is really fun, then you see all of the Arabic influence in there, and you don't see that in the north. You know, it's really that's a southern thing, and those flavors translate. You know, there's different flavors in the south than there are in the north. That's why you have to go explore. You know, the beaches in the north are colder than the beaches in the south. And you know, I grew up in Texas, where it is super hot, right? I grew up in Fort Worth, and I even worked outside in the summer. I can't imagine going back to doing that anymore. But there was a time when I was working outside in the summer in Texas, and still the hottest day I've ever spent in my life was a day in Sevilla, in Andalusia, in the south. It was like walking on the sun. That's when you know about siesta time, right? Because it's too hot to do anything else. So you go in and you have to take a nap because it's so hot. But again, you know, the trade-off is, you know, you have the sense of the smells of the orange blossoms in the air from Sevilla, and the fish fries. I could talk forever. So last recipe we're talking about, I just wanted to show you one way that we stuff peppers around here. Again, super versatile. They can be hot, they can be cold, they can be room temperature. They're really great kind of picnic food. So in this recipe, I have tuna, I have some capers, little known fact, caper. Pretty much all the capers you eat come from Spain. If you know or if you don't know, they're one of the largest producers of Spain. So taking a look at the map, you know, we're looking at, again, the Piquil peppers that come from Navarra. We're looking at tuna that comes from the north. You know, conserves in Spain are not like we grew up here in Texas, you know, or we grew up here in the United States and in Texas. You know, when I grew up, you know, canned food and jarred food wasn't always necessarily, you know, considered the best quality. Really, in Spain, it's many times it's the reverse. You know, there are so many kinds of really good quality tinned fishes, and other seafood recipes, mussels in escabeche, octopus, different single varietal clams that come from small regions. So it's something that I really invite you to explore. And white asparagus that's picked in the height of season, is best enjoyed many times in a can because you get all those really good flavors that you really can't get the rest of the year. So this, all I'm going to do is along with my chopped olives, I'm just going to mix these around with my tuna. I'm going to add a little bit of my olive oil as a binder and a flavoring agent, and then these get stuffed into my peppers here. Let me grab a dish. And so I'm going to stuff a pepper, in true style of the. Let me get a bigger plate here. Of true style in the pincho world, I'm gonna start it on a piece of bread, and so I have my my roasted piquil pepper. Stuffed with tuna that was packed in oil, and my capers and parsley, my olives, and that is my stuffed pepper. This one's gonna get a pick too, and really that's this recipe. We use these all the time. We many times tend to roast them in the oven, but there's, like I said, you can eat these cold. You can stuff them with cheese. You can stuff them with minced ham. There's really like a million things that you can do with them. So that is that dish, and then that is the recipes that I have here for you today. Let me know. Do you have any questions? Do you have any comments? What did you like? What did you not like? What do you think that you would try out of these things? Let Sophie know she's fielding questions. That's why I keep looking over here, because that's the magic screen that you guys can't see, where Sophie puts the questions that you have. So don't be afraid to ask questions. So favorite ingredient to use in cooking. Those things change, right? It's always like, what's your favorite thing at the moment? In general, I have to say I love seafood. It's so, there's nothing like a fresh item from the sea, right? One of the stages that I worked out in the north, in Galicia, which I could talk about Galicia for days. It's where Godeo wine comes from. It's where they have great grass-fed beef there. There's octopus. We haven't even talked about octopus, but octopus comes from all over Spain, but many times very popular in Galicia. And they have traditions of witches there, and kind of like witchcraft, which is different than the rest of the country. But I did a stage at a seafood restaurant there called Alborada, and they didn't even have a printed menu. The fish delivery would come in every day, just stacked tall of like 3 different kinds of fish, 3 different kinds of shrimp, mussels. They have the special crabs of the region, the special clams of the region, sardines. What else came in? Percebes, the barnacles, the gooseneck barnacles, and we would spend the entire morning, working all the seafood, just cleaning it all, taking bones out of sardines, which is a lot of fun, really. It was great to see this seafood that came in from the boat that morning, fresh seaweeds, which were so much fun to work with. And now actually you can get here through our friends at Regalis Foods. They're importing fresh seaweeds from Galicia. So from the same actually a company that we were getting fresh seaweed delivery from when I was at that restaurant. So, you know, nothing's impossible. Do you blend your Texas background with your Spanish cooking? Yeah, you know, it's always there, right? Like Texas is hard to like remove, right? So I do, you know, in general, Spanish cooking is actually friendly to fusion. I know sometimes fusion is not like considered a great word, but at all of the places that I did stages at in Spain, they were so excited to fuse in Asian ingredients and other ingredients of the world that, you know, especially in the more modern, you know, Spanish cooking, you know, they were taking traditional recipes. They were taking Mama's recipe for ensaladilla or, you know, whatever she made, right? And they were making it, you know, their own or playing with different ingredients, and that was fantastic. If you ever have a chance to go to Madrid, Fusion, it's a big convention in the winter in Spain. Probably not this winter, but probably next winter. Hopefully it'll start again, and you'll see all these really great, you know, fusion techniques going on. But yes, I do. You know, we do barbecue here sometimes, and the rub that I use for the baby back ribs is a big element of it is the smoked pimenton. Because it really, you know, it helps me blend those worlds. You know, I said I grew up Jewish, so the Arabic flavors that you see in Jewish cooking, you know, is easy to come together with the Arabic flavors you see in Spanish cooking. You know, what is, you know, Granada, the city, what does Granada mean? It means, it translates to pomegranate. You know, you have flavors of pomegranate in Spain, you have flavors of pomegranate in, you know, kind of Middle Eastern and Jewish cooking. So those things for me are easy to bring together. And they're fun too, right? I mean, I didn't grow up in Spain. You know, I didn't start going to Spain until my early 20s, and then really doing the stages there and learning family recipes, and certainly, you know, having a Spanish restaurant, you know, you have to really study. But, you know, it always, for me, since I didn't grow up with those flavors, I felt a little weird about it at first. But as I got to know, as I got to know it better and better, and over the years, and as I felt more confident, and certainly as I went to do stages over there, then, you know, you have those, you create those memories, you know, and you learn from great people. And everybody I learned from in Spain, every kitchen I worked at in Spain, I worked at about 7 different kitchens, and they were all so nice, so friendly. You know, share. They're here. Take our recipes with you. Let me show you how we do this. You know, I still keep in touch with so many of them. It was really, the camaraderie was amazing. So. If you have any last minute questions, you can still pop them through into the chat, and we'll answer over chat. I'd like to take this time to thank you all for coming. Y'all for coming. Thank y'all for coming. And it's a joke around, like, my parents have a big accent, and I always, you know, nothing's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. It's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So you'll hear me go back and forth from Texas to non-Texas depending on who I'm talking to. But anyway, so thank you to y'all in Texas. Thank you so much to Jeffrey and Mercedes and John and everybody at Foods from Spain and Trade Commission from Spain for putting this on. Let's go back to Jeffrey for some final words, and thanks for coming.
Thank you, Matt, for sharing your experience, your life, the taste, your recipes, sharing Spain with us and bringing a bit of it today to all of us from our homes. It really has been very enjoyable, very enlightening. Hope you have all enjoyed this experience. And importantly, when all this is over, I really do hope you get the chance to go to Spain, live it, taste it, enjoy it. It really is something to discover, appreciate, and enjoy, and share with the others. I do hope, again, we can share this with you. Thank you very much. Bye.